Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our 2025 Peak Performance event. It's fantastic to be here with you, whether you're joining us live in the room at Burnley or tuning in from across the country. This year, we're kicking off Peak earlier than ever, giving you more time to plan, adapt, and perform at your best. And the timing couldn't be better. In the last 12 months to June, 9.8 million households shopped online, driving 14.2% year-on-year growth in e-commerce. That's nearly $78 billion in online spend, with marketplaces alone accounting for over $17 billion, up $3 billion on the previous year. Retail overall is also showing resilience, growing 3.6% year-on-year, supported by rate cuts that have eased household budgets and boosted demand across categories like electronics, apparel, and home and garden. With further cuts anticipated, retail activity is expected to gain even more momentum through the coming months. Now, peak is our most important season. It's when our entire business comes together across delivery, retail, customer service, and digital to support Australian businesses and communities. Last year, we delivered nearly 103 million parcels during peak. This year, we're ready to go even bigger. We've been preparing all year, investing in new facilities, expanding our fleet, and launching new products to help you deliver more, faster, and with greater confidence. We've launched new products like our extra small satchel, giving customers more flexibility and better value. We've opened 8 new facilities since peak 2024, with 7 more scheduled before peak kicks off in earnest. And just this month, we announced a game-changing partnership with Shopify, streamlining fulfillment for thousands of businesses using My Post Business. This integration makes it easier to manage shipping, print labels, and track deliveries all in one place. It's all part of our commitment to helping you succeed, whether you're a small online store or a national retailer. So thank you for joining us. Now, let's dive into what's ahead and how we can help you unlock your peak potential.
Looking good, looking very good. It's peak season for businesses and we're prepped to deliver at peak performance, adding more vans, facilities and 3,000 extra team members straight into the rotation. Sub in, let's go.
Now, earlier this month, we announced one of the most highly anticipated partnerships in Australian e-commerce, making fulfillment and shipping management easier for the thousands of businesses using My Post Business. Needless to say, I'm talking about Australia Post's partnership with Shopify. I'm thrilled to be joined by Shopify APAC Managing Director, Sean Broughton. Sean leads Shopify across Asia Pacific, helping thousands of businesses scale and succeed in a rapidly changing retail environment. He's also held senior leadership roles at Microsoft, LinkedIn and Lego, so he knows what it takes to grow in the digital age. So welcome, Sean. It's great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me, Gary. It's wonderful to be a part of an event like this and to be part of this wonderful strategic partnership that we're both kicking off.
Yeah, and just on that note, let's start with the big news. So we've partnered to streamline the fulfillment process. What does this mean for retailers in practice?
I think it's wonderful when you see two market dominant players come together and sit down as partners and think, how can we streamline and help our customers together jointly? And I think that we've really been able to do that with this partnership. Little bit about me. My wife actually is a retailer. She's got a fashion boutique. She's a small business owner. She has a Shopify store.
And an Australia Post customer, I hope.
An Australia Post customer. So she is online with Shopify and she's all physical retail and point of sale too. And so I live and breathe feedback daily, not about just your service, but my service also. And so I think what this partnership does, it really gives the gift of time back. And if I think about the struggles that small to medium, large, any business has, there's 2 big buckets. There's cash flow and there's time and just the priorities. And so she's back of house, she's HR, she's marketing, she's sales, she's the buyer. So how can we work together to think about ways to streamline and help them optimize their businesses? And so I think we've really been able to do that. And a lot of that is, for example, is what this partnership will do will be speed at scale. So you talked about labels just a bit earlier. Printing hundreds and hundreds of shipping labels with all of the order details pre-populated and filled out. Like that is a massive time saver. There'll be the ability to have one login screen within the Shopify admin. And so we've all got those friends that have like crazy amounts of windows open. this will be one place where you will be able to order shipments, you'll be able to track your shipments, and you'll also be able to print your labels all in one simple place. And then I think what part that I'm probably the most excited about is how do we help our customers have a better experience? And this enables the Shopify app. So they will be able to go in and get real-time updates on their order, their shipment, where it is.
Well, that's all great. And it really sort of resonates with me when I visit small businesses and they're time poor and they have to be a jack of all trades. It's really challenging. And of course, we then head into peak and it gets even busier. And we're getting to that pointy end of the year now. So, how can we support customers to navigate the shopping season with reliable delivery and scalable solutions? So, why now, as we head into peak, why is this relationship or this partnership so important?
I think it's really well timed because, loyalty, trust, and repeat customers are won during fulfillment. The sale doesn't stop as soon as they hit the buy button. It's just the beginning. And so that trust is earned. And I think right in this environment right now, $1 is worth a lot right now, as we know. And so being able to fulfill on that promise is absolutely imperative. And so this will help not only the customers have much more trust in the exchange with retailers because they're able to see clearly what's happening with their purchase, but it's also give, as I said, merchants and retailers time back. That time back is important. So a lot of that administration that I talked about will give time back to businesses to do what we'd started for, the product that you built, that you love, that you want to take to market. Spend time on that product, spend more time marketing, spend more time talking to your customers, spend more time with your partners, that gift of time. So I think that's really, really important. And I think ultimately, shipping and fulfillment, it's a sales enhancement. It's a powerhouse. When it's done right, it helps sales. It's not just some back office task, it's imperative.
And it's interesting you say that because one of the statistics in our online shopping report for 2024, so with the 12 months before now, is that 85% of shoppers across all generations say that a reliable delivery experience will be the most important factor in trusting online retailers in the next 5 years. So the fulfillment piece, and then we often say last mile is an extension of the brand of the retailer, and obviously the role you play with the retailer is critical too. So it's a great partnership that brings all that together.
Absolutely.
So specifically then, obviously there's fulfillment, but you work with thousands of retailers, both here and around the world. So what are your top tips for e-commerce businesses wanting to maximise peak performance this year? What are some of the things you think they can do?
Don't throw anything at me, but AI. Like everyone hears a lot about it, but I really do think that, I think it's going to be a lot of the same stuff you'll see this this sale period. But I think how do you get creative and leverage what has changed a lot since this time last year? And there's some simple ways to do that. There's, think about customer service. There's a lot of amazing AI chatbots out there that will help you, again, provide maybe a better experience to your customers and give you time back to put resources, valuable resources than other areas of the business. So I think that's imperative. Even within Shopify, we have an AI product called Copilot. It's crazy. And so my wife's store, I'll give you some real life examples, probably help people. When you run analytics now, it is done in seconds. You're not pulling out Excel sheets and trying to run your own data or even use it like anything you want, like for like, any sales data, sales history, it's great at that. It can review your website and provide you suggestions on what you should do to optimize your own site. It's great. Peak season coming up. We were talking about what should my wife do when we think about bundles. Go into Copilot, ask it for a recommendation based on stock holdings, margin, and the time of year. What are some bundles that you think that we should look at? And it's not perfect, but man, it's really close to it, and it gives you a lot of a foundational start to do that. And I think just thinking differently, I think last year we saw a 23% increase in basket size during peak season. And so it's not just about going on price, it's about adding value. And so I think thinking about loyalty and reward programs, how do you add value with gifts with purchase? How do you add, I think that's really important. I'm trying to think of real life example, July bags. I don't know I think they're Melbourne based actually.
They are.
A great company. And I think if you watch what they do every year, and they're a customer of ours too, so I see it all the time, they are really creative of how they add value to the purchase. They never really discount during that time of the year. They're thinking of ways creatively to add value to their customers. And I think there's some good examples out there to think about that.
And my sense is, as you said, not perfect yet, but directionally there, and we have to start experimenting with AI and test and learn because it's going to be critical, give us the edge.
Absolutely, and like you said, it's peak season. Like this is the time to win customers. This is the time to build that loyalty base. This is that time to have a repeat customer come back and unlock the holy grail, which is word of mouth. And so it's important.
We see that during peak in terms of, good performance over peak. I'm sure for your customers results in stickier customers post-peak, that they have, it's prime time for them. So it's critical that they have a great experience where they often earn most of their profit. And I'm sure you see that with your customers too.
Yep.
Okay, so, Shopify has been all about democratizing, opening it up to the small business and helping small businesses thrive. And you're well known in the B2B, SMB and B2C space. We've noticed you're gaining traction with larger enterprises in Australia, including some of our mutual customers, and even potentially expanding into B2B. So can you share more about your strategy and capability in serving those segments?
Yeah, so I think those that are familiar with Shopify, the tagline that we have everywhere is make commerce better for everyone, and that means everyone. And so I think what we've really focused on with the larger, more complex merchants is stretching up into that segment, and I think we've invested a lot and we've got the right partnerships. And when you get into that more complexity of big box, large retailing, you need a really secure and solid partner network around you. So we've invested a lot in having the right partners in the market here to support those merchants. And I think if I think about it, more examples, JB Hi-Fi has been with Shopify for a long time now, probably about 7 to 8 years now. They've just brought over the Good Guys business. And so I think for me, I'm really proud of that moment because there's not much better of a nod of confidence for when one company brings their other brand onto the platform. So we're gaining a lot of traction in that area, and a huge thanks to our partners that are helping us do that.
Well, thank you, Sean. And look, firstly, good luck to your wife for peak and I guess to all your customers. And we can't wait to evolve this partnership with you further. So I know there's a lot of opportunity ahead of us. So please thank Sean.
Thanks, Gary.
Now, for those who'd like to learn more about how to connect your MyPost business and Shopify accounts, you'll find in your webinar console with all the information you need. So we encourage you to click through and get started today.
Let's go! At AusPost, we keep delivering even after the whistle, right through the weekends. Sure, it might be after business hours, but peak season's not over till the last parcel's delivered. Peak sale season's coming. For smooth sending, it's time to practice best practice. Smart packaging, clear labelling, on-time manifesting. Let's go.
Welcome to the Peak Potential Panel, a 360-degree forecast for the season ahead, and we're going to unpack the economic and e-commerce trends with the experts themselves. To help you and your team prepare to deliver during peak, I'm Fleur Brown, Chief Industry Affairs Officer for Australian Retailers Association. And joining me today are two of our top retail experts in Australia. Firstly, Adelaide Timbrell, and she's the Senior Economist at ANZ. Since joining ANZ Research in 2019, Adelaide's developed deep expertise in household income, finances, property, private sector credit, and is widely sought for media commentary and conference insights. She holds a Masters of Economics, from Purdue and a Bachelor from UQ. Welcome, Adelaide.
Thank you.
We're also lucky to be joined this morning by Jay Wright. He's the founder of eCommerce Equation and co-founder of multiple multi-million-dollar e-commerce brands. That's what we like to hear. Jay's program has helped hundreds of Australian brands scale via high-impact coaching, live training, and a strong community. He's spoken widely on building sustainable, founder-led growth strategies based on data. Welcome, Jay.
Thank you.
We're going to kick off with the economic picture and start with you, Adelaide. Could you tell us, a snapshot of the current economic landscape and what it might mean for household spending this peak season?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, we've had a few hard years, obviously, in the kind of Australian, for the Australian consumer. We've had really strong inflation, we've had higher interest rates, and what this has done is it has pushed down per capita or per person spending in real terms, so the amount of things people are buying, not just the amount of dollars they're spending, down, like every corner. Now that has started to reverse. So we're finally going in the right direction. Now when you take 10 steps backwards and 3 steps forward, you're still a little bit backwards, right? But we're at least going in the right direction. And so the things that are pushing us in the right direction are, we've got income growth. So wages are moving more quickly than inflation. We've got tax cuts. So there was actually $20 billion a year worth of tax cuts starting mid last year, which until recently was going into people's savings accounts, but there is now evidence that it is going into spending instead. We've got rate cuts. So we've had 75 basis points of rate cuts this year. We think there'll be one more rate cut in November, maybe let's call that a 70% chance. And that also means that for homeowners, so anyone who's in kind of that like family segment of retail or older, we're going to see some impacts there of that reduction in mortgage payments. The Australian household has been quite resilient through this difficult period though. Household savings have continued to grow. People are actually putting extra on their mortgage. And so it's finally become time where that discipline has moved more into optimism, and we're seeing that in stronger spending.
Great to hear a bit of good news. And staying with you, Adelaide, how do you see consumer shopping behaviour changing this year?
So what has become very clear with consumers over the last few years, and particularly this year as well, is price sensitivity. Even though inflation is actually exactly where it should be, the cumulative increase in prices over the last 5 years means that people are still quite sensitive to it on that day-to-day basis. You know, you go into a cafe and you go, why is my toasty $14? It's just little things like that that do increase that price sensitivity for consumers, because interest rates are still have been on the high side until recently. We feel that as well. So we're seeing more of a concentration of spending into those sales periods, with a smaller share of spending occurring in kind of normal parts of the year. So that kind of peaks that you see, they're bigger peaks than usual, with kind of larger troughs in between.
Yeah, makes sense. That's great. Jay, moving to you, what are you seeing on the ground in e-commerce when it comes to the lead up to Black Friday, Cyber Monday? I can't believe I just said that, but yes, it's happening.
Absolutely happening. So this year, this is our 6th year of running dedicated Black Friday training and pathways for our members. And I think back in 2019, it was a bit of a fringe sale event. And what we've seen is year after year, it's basically becoming, more sought out by consumers, to the point where I actually think it is the premier sale event. So much so that it's actually completely cannibalized Boxing Day online, in my opinion. And we've really brought forward a lot of that December purchasing and demand into November. And, if you look across to the US is our fastest growing member base. We work with a lot of brands over there, and you can kind of see directionally where Australia is heading, which is just maximum competition. In the US, it's so competitive, it's actually almost hard to spend money on ads during Black Friday because there's just not enough inventory to meet the demand. And so I don't think we're quite there yet, but I think year after year, we do see the competition just being more and more fierce. And so what I'm seeing on the ground this year is just a different level of discipline, strategy, and planning required by merchants to actually make sure that they are able to compete and sort of win out against their competitors during this peak season. And most of the merchandising plans have already had to be locked in. A lot of brands are already building momentum for audiences and top of funnel now in advance. And a lot of people are spending a lot of time on their marketing offers and plans already. So I think just a much more robust level of planning and strategy, because Black Friday isn't like any other sale. It's incredibly competitive, and you do need to kind of approach it with a different lens than a typical sale.
Yeah, absolutely. We know consumers are increasingly, or still, value driven. And what kind of differentiation tactics are we seeing this year?
Yeah, I think over the last couple of years in particular, there's been a lot of training to be resistant to buying full price. And I think that's kind of endured a lot going into this year. But there's still a tremendous opportunity. So I think people aren't buying full price, they're seeking out value. And to me, there is still the opportunity to not just have a liquidation event where you're selling stock. We survey all of our brands at the end of peak season, and 65% of brands last year had their biggest ever profit month in November. So to make it profitable, I think there is a lot of unit economic engineering you can do. Earlier this year, a lot of people were doing merchandise planning, so actually building in unit economic efficiencies from their buying for the peak season. I think what we were focusing on now is actually the offer. When it goes to putting an offer into market, I think a lot of people just think about the discount. But one of our favourite strategies is to actually, give a discount with one hand, but take a higher basket size with the other. And typically you can actually preserve a lot of margin by creating smart incentives like gift with purchases that actually encourage people to spend up, which creates efficiencies per order because you're spending the same amount on Australia Post for most of these orders, the same amount of acquisition cost. And so you can actually still have a pretty profitable result while meeting the customer where they are and actually providing really good value, but also meeting your own needs, which is to actually have a profitable Black Friday event.
Yes. All of the above. And peak season obviously brings some operational challenges as well. So logistics, staffing, supply chain pressures, how are e-commerce businesses setting up to deal with those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, the logistics side of Black Friday is where all the horror stories come out. And I think that the profile of sale really is different than a lot of other sales. The demand is so strong, particularly in a very consolidated period. 75% of brands that we work with will choose to run a style of sale which basically front loads a lot of the orders. So typically a sale might run for 7 to 12 days over the Black Friday period. And often a brand will do 50% of that volume on the first day and 15% on the second day. So they're almost doing 2/3 of their entire sale volume in a very consolidated period. Not only that, as I just mentioned, we're often trying to push up the units per order. So the actual complexity with fulfilling that volume of orders has never been higher, as well as the volume. So, this is where we've just seen absolute horror stories. I remember 2020 with LSKD doing their Black Friday sale. They, just got into such a big backlog. And they were scrambling, trying to kind of get labour hire in to fulfill the orders and ended up having to upgrade 20,000 orders to Express Post to get them there by Christmas. And so we've sort of got a lot of scars, and what we try and do is, I guess, teach people the lessons without having to get the scars themselves. And a lot of that really comes down to really accurate modelling and planning, so that you have adequate labour, adequate training of that labour, and make sure that your systems are kind of stress tested and polished in the lead up, because it is obviously a peak revenue event, but the flip side of that is you will be pushed to your limits in terms of the logistics and operations to fulfil on that revenue.
Yes, absolutely. A question for both of you. Looking beyond this season, what long-term shifts or upcoming trends do you think retailers should be considering and preparing for now?
I'm happy to start. So look, when we look over the next couple of years, what we're seeing is that wage growth will continue to outpace inflation, which means people will actually be getting pay rises that are not eaten up by just groceries becoming more expensive. We also don't expect rates to kind of pop back up after coming down, as long as they kind of stop from November onwards. And that means that people will be able to keep hold of that extra margin in their budget from interest rates coming lower, anyone with an existing mortgage. We've also got higher housing prices over the next couple of years. Now, what that does is it does a few things. For people who are prospective buyers, it means they've got to work harder to build that deposit. So that can actually have a downside for spending in some segments. But then for the people who own homes, they feel richer. And we know when people feel richer, and this is economic data, when people feel richer, they spend more money and they save less. So we actually consider that GDP will move 2.5% over the next couple of years. Add inflation on top of that, so you can get the real numbers, or they're actually called the nominal numbers, 4.5%, 5%, and then consumer spending will actually grow quicker than that, because we're seeing that as a real growth sector in the next year or two after a period of real malaise due to that cost of living crisis.
Great advice. Jack?
Yeah, I think long-term trends, sort of Sean mentioned it as well, AI is obviously the thing at the forefront of a lot of merchants' minds. And I think sort of the two areas that we're really focused on supporting our members with is, leveraging the big tech players. And so a lot of the media platforms have completely retooled. So Meta, for instance, not just on the ad platform, but even in the news feed, over the last few years, they've gone from a social graph to an AI-led interest graph. So the content that's on those platforms, the way people are consuming, is fundamentally completely changed in the biggest way since those platforms launched. And so merchants are now needing to meet the inputs of those platforms. On the ad front, again, it's gone from being sort of media buying led to sort of content led and what's going into those platforms. So I think there's going to be a lot of efficiencies that can be gained by being at the forefront of the changes happening to the big media tech players. And on the other side, I think on the operational front for e-commerce brands, AI is manifesting in a lot of ways, but all of those ways sort of distill back to getting more revenue per employee. Historically, we sort of saw that number sitting at $300,000 to $500,000 in revenue per employee for most of our merchants. And now we're seeing that kind of expand into the millions. So it's not uncommon to have 1, 2, or 3 million revenue per employee. And Sean mentioned Shopify Sidekick, which reduces the need for developers and business intelligence tools. But that's also extending into customer support. One of the brands I'm a shareholder of went from 10 customer support people to 4 with the use of a tool, Sienna AI. And so I think really the long-term trend is how are merchants going to be at the forefront. It's a very competitive industry, retail. And so I think the people that are adopting and being at the forefront or ahead of the curve will be able to gain market share. And so that's really, I think, the long-term trend that I'm really focused on supporting our members with over the mid to long term.
Yeah, look, that's a fantastic overview. Thank you, both of you. To close us out, I'd love you to share a piece of actionable advice for our retailers leading into this peak season. Adelaide?
So I just want to start by saying that I'm not qualified to provide financial advice. I always have to say that as a bank employee. You don't want to mix me up with a financial advisor. But I would just say, just because people are getting pay rises, we also know that the unemployment rate is likely to stay very low through the next few years. So most people are going to have jobs. Most people are going to have pay rises. Most people are going to have actually more margin in their budgets. That doesn't mean that it's going to be 2022 again when people just spend whatever on whatever. We're seeing this really big cumulative impact of that inflationary period, which has made people price sensitive. It's going to take a few years for that to wear off. So we can't let income growth equal complacency in this cycle.
Great advice. Thank you. Jay?
I think my actual advice would just be to start now. Like it's, we ran our Black Friday readiness events over a month ago, and it seems crazy to be planning for an event so far out, but the cost of ads between today and the end of November will literally double. So a lot of people are building momentum for the sale now, deploying their top of funnel budgets to build awareness where it's cheaper, getting all of the marketing material and collateral ready now. It's kind of already too late from a merchandising perspective for a lot of people, but I just think, really it is not a normal sale. You do need to approach it with a different level of readiness and planning. And so I'd just say get ahead of it. Don't leave it to the last minute like a normal sale.
Great advice. Well, thank you, both of you, Jay and Adelaide, for your great insights today. Don't forget to submit your questions to Adelaide and Jay via Slido below. And stay tuned because up next, Gary will be back on stage and he's speaking to some of Australia's leading retailers about how they prepare for peak.
Let's move. Choose next day delivery this peak sales season. Speed wins happy customers. Game on. Let's deliver.
We have two wonderful leaders with us today. Alex McNabb, who is on the stage and mic'd up, is the Chief Operating Officer of Baird Footwear, a Melbourne-born brand known for stylish podiatrist design shoes and a strong focus on sustainability. And Christelle Young, who'll be out here in a moment, no doubt, is the CEO of T2, who I'm sure you've all heard of too, one of Australia's most iconic retailers with a global footprint, delivering tea experiences delight customers worldwide, and you made us. So we heard a little bit from the previous panel just about peak, and Jay talked about being ready. So let's start with the big picture, and we'll start with Alex, and then go to you, Christelle. So I know you have quite different peak seasons from what I understand. What does peak look like for your business, Alex? When do you start? When would you start planning for peak?
2 months out, we'll typically have a big all-hands meeting where every department sort of starts to think about what peak looks like individually for them. For e-commerce, that's our site under traffic. How are we going to make sure it's still performant? How are we going to make sure that everyone visiting that site doesn't have any sort of degraded experience? Whereas for the warehouse, we'll get a true projection of how many orders they are likely to have going out their door, and that's a numbers game. How many people do we need to pick, pack and ship per day to make sure they get out in a timely fashion? Same for stores. We ship from all our stores, so we're trying to give them a projection of what we expect them to ship each day, and they have to balance that with the retail side because the stores stay open as well. So it's really knowing what to expect, increasing about 20% on that, so that you don't fall short, and if you do go ahead of your target, and making sure everyone's really aligned with what their department needs to do in order for it to be successful and a great customer experience.
Sounds almost military-like, doesn't it, in
It
terms
is,
of
it is a bit. There's a lot of to-do lists.
Yes. And Christelle, what about for you?
Yeah, so for us at T2, we're 61 stores across Australia, New Zealand and Singapore, and then our e-com store also. So for us, it's like our grand final, our peak season. 40% of our sales are actually in the 12 weeks around Christmas time. So it's all hands on deck. We start off already, we've started our weekly stand-ups, our peak stand-up. We call it Christmas, but it really is our peak stand-up. We've already started that kind of operations around how do we set up. There's a lot that goes into it, from in terms of setting up more staff in all of our stores. So we hire about 300 staff this time of year. We have to ramp up our distribution centre to be able to cope with the volumes that come in. So we have normally just a morning shift that we run from a BAU side of things, and then during this time of year we come into an afternoon shift too, so we need more staff there. Then in addition to that, so there's all the training that goes with all of that. So HR are absolutely pumped at the moment, getting all that training out. Thankfully to AI, it makes it a lot easier in this day and age. And then it's obviously getting these stores ramped up and ready, the managers ready, all of our products, visual merchandising, all of that operation and logistics side of things is really ramped up too in this side of things. So we have Christmas, we have Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and then there's Boxing Day. So there's also a big switch in stores from sale to Christmas to sale, which is quite a bit of an effort in and of itself. So there's a lot going on. We're starting planning for Christmas next year now in terms from a product point of view, but the operation side of things, we really start ramping up that already about a few weeks ago.
And Alex, and for you, I know peak is, well, that Christmas period is not the only time that you have major sale events. What are the other, because given the seasons for you, what are the other times of year when it gets really busy, and how do you manage those outside the core peak period?
The start of the season is always busy for us. We've got a really fantastic and loyal customer base, and they're usually hanging out to see what boots we've got at the start of winter, what sandals we've got at the start of summer. And Christmas is busier for our retail stores more than our online. Particularly, your cities where people go in, Melbourne always sees a spike around events, things like that. So they, again, are sort of little micro pieces that can really just ramp everything up for us. But yeah, peak for us sort of comes in shorter bursts than the sort of the longer form months that T2 have.
And how do you, we heard Jay talk a bit earlier about strategies for that peak period. Yours is much more of a gifting. Gifting is a real opportunity, whereas less so for shoes. So we'll start with you, Crystal. How do you sort of deal from a gifting perspective and the strategy in peak? We see massive discounts often, but spreading that out across the period, and how you sort of position the offer in the market for peak.
So just going into e-com for a moment. So on average in e-com, we would have about 1,000 parcels a day. Thereabout, that goes out from our distribution centre. In that Black Friday, we've seen it get up to almost 7,000 in that little weekend. So it's quite a big ramp up going from a team of people to deal with 1,000, it's times 7, going up to that little bit. So there's a few things that we're trying to look at and do. One is around how do we flatten that volatility? We've already seen a lot of the movement from sales in Boxing Day go into this Black Friday, Cyber Monday side of things. So we're also looking at how do we used to be just this little weekend, and now you see a lot of retailers actually go 2 weeks out and start their Black Friday sales early. I don't know if you remember last year going into the retail environment, the Friday before Black Friday, everyone had their Black Friday signs out already. So we're looking at strategic ideas and decisions around how do we flatten that a lot more and spread that volume out over numerous days, so people like AusPost also don't get that shock of 7,000, 14,000 parcels all on the one hit in one day, and we can move that over a number of days. But with that comes planning. So I couldn't reiterate more. I know that the teams earlier spoke also about planning and forecasting. I heard the LSKD example there. Even when it's not just even about planning and understanding the best forecast possible, but what if it goes bigger? What if it goes even better than we anticipated? What is our backup plan? So last year we had a whole stand-up called Plan B. What happens if we need to activate Plan B, and when do we need to activate Plan B? If we need more people in our DC, when do we make that call? What is that marker, that indicator that says we have to activate Plan B? Is it the volume indicator? And when do we make that call, and what is that volume we need to get to go, okay, we need to activate Plan B? So meticulous planning on top of that.
And for you, Alex, so how do you try to spread it out over the period as well? So given different product, different proposition.
Yeah, it's a very similar thing. Planning, have a contingency plan for every process. We've had our share of horror stories over the years with both internal issues and third-party issues, and having a ready-made plan that everybody knows what they can shift to in the event that something goes wrong, and knowing what their plan B is, how they're going to execute that, so that there's minimal stress on the team and things can continue to deliver for the customer. That's really key. I'm a huge contingency planner, and I think everybody in Baird is, and that really works to our benefit. But yeah, flattening the peak is key.
And you talked about the number of people you need to bring on board. How easy with the low unemployment rate is it to attract team members to join for peak? For both of us, start perhaps with you, Christelle.
Thankfully, we work in an amazing brand, and I hope everyone here knows T2. It's a very loved brand, so we're lucky in that respect, and it's tea, it's a beautiful category. We are a B Corp organisation, and so that in and of itself, we're lucky that it attracts great talent. But having said that, it has been a little bit more challenging than usual because retail crime is a bit of an issue at the moment from a retail side of things. In other areas, it's not too bad. Having said that, we have to obviously do quite a bit of training across it. So we have to we spoke a little bit about AI. We've now got some AI agents in place to really help both in that recruitment process, but also in the learning and development and training all of our retail team. And we're soon to go live with a little agent, a retail team agent, to help the teams navigate all the policies, procedures, and even stock queries.
Like a co-pilot, it's like a buddy.
Like a buddy. But that buddy can tell me what's in transit to QVB. I just had a look this morning. What is in transit to QVB? How much of that is out of stock? So what value of our out of stocks are we currently missing? What do I do with all those pieces that are in transit and out of stock? What, as a team member, it recommends, if I'm out of stock Melbourne breakfast, you should be recommending this tea instead. It's very like and similar, and a little bit of an action plan of what for them to do too. So it's quite a smart little agent too.
And what about for you, Alex, in terms of getting team members in? How easy do you find that?
We sort of set our sale dates a long way in advance, and we let our team from full-timers down to casuals know that there's going to be a lot of work that week. It's a blackout period for leave, it's a all hands on deck scenario for the 2 weeks that we are on sale. And we also we've got a couple of labour hire agencies that we pull in, particularly for our warehouse. And then we have a really great network of family and friends. So I think at one time or another, all my sisters have picked and packed post to send out to Baird. And that's quite common across the company, that someone's brother will come and help, or, someone's sister will be there on the weekend, or the couple of cousins will come in and ship the Saturday, Sunday. So we've got a really good relationship with people, and we try and make it a bit fun. There's pizzas, there's food, there's great music. So it can be a little bit of a break for a store team member who, is in the retail sphere all the time. They'll come out to the warehouse and they'll be like, oh, this is different. This doesn't feel as much like work, because it's a change of pace for them. So we're really lucky in the sense that, we can usually call on people to help us ramp up.
We actually have our one team, we call it one team shifts, and get up to 1,000 people helping across the network. So it's a great way to support those in the field from our support office here in Melbourne and in Sydney. So actionable tips. I know we said planning way ahead, and we're not that far away from peak now, but any sort of actionable for those watching today or in the room, any actionable tips for some of the people watching today, specifically for peak?
Okay, so I did speak about the planning and the plan B, planning and a plan B. But on top of that too is also communicating that plan and coordinating with your partners too. And since we're Ozpost, a good example is Ozpost, and obviously anticipating our volumes and letting you guys know. And we have a great account manager that we work quite closely with to be able to coordinate that. Not only just coordinating what our volumes are and having you guys prepared, because you are, as you mentioned earlier, an extension of our brand. So we want to help set our partners up to succeed just as much, because it is an extension of us. If you guys are late, our customer care gets slammed and they think it's us. So that side of things, but even into our retail stores, for example, in our Queen Victoria building store, on average we get about 90 boxes dropped at the moment. We deliver 3 times a week and it's about 90 boxes. In peak time, it's 100 boxes a day, thereabouts. It's a lot of boxes of stock that gets flipped. That store basically gets completely flipped in an entire week. So ensuring that we have the right communication. You've got a hub there. Australia Post has a hub that knows when to deliver into the store. We don't want 100 boxes being dropped at 12 p.m. in the peak of the day too. We want to make sure it's a really safe environment for everyone. So ensuring that we communicate with our partners is really important too, equally, whether it's our technology platforms, whether it's our DC agencies that we use there, etc., so that they can also anticipate what we're anticipating. That's probably the other part that I would add.
And Alex?
I would echo that, particularly on the tech side of things, knowing who you can call on if there's a problem, and them being aware of what peak looks like specifically for you, saying we're going to be busier. Is that twice as busy? Is that 10 times as busy? What does that actually mean for them, and how they need to alter their service for your business to make sure that, there's no negative impact on you, because all your third-party vendors are part of your customer's experience. And if you want to control that experience and make it a really fantastic one, you do need to have a lock on what other areas and what other vendors are contributing towards that. And we view peak as a real opportunity. Like, it's a great opportunity for our existing customers to, get some more of our shoes, and for new customers. But it does mean that you can't have a great variation between the service level that you give in non-peak time and the service level that you give in peak. If you've got a regular customer who buys shoes on a Tuesday and receives them on a Friday or a Thursday, they expect that same level of service, maybe given a day or two's grace, but you can't have one mode for sale and one mode for regular time. You need to project your volume well in advance, and you need to scale for that. You can't have a degraded experience for your customer. And so putting your customer at the centre of your decision making and the centre of your planning, and is that going to make this great for them? Is the first time customer going to want to come back after this experience? Is my ongoing customer going to be like, I'm going to avoid shopping in sale because that was just a nightmare and I had to wait 2 weeks? You can't have that. So everything you do has to be done with the customer at the centre and giving them the right communication, the right experience and the right product.
There's no question we always sort of monitor post-peak any churn, and we know that a great experience over peak, our customers stay with us, and I suspect as an extension of your brand, that's critical, as you say, that the service performance holds up as much as it's under pressure for that very short period.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and you can plan for it. You know what your peak is going to look like, then add 25% just in case. But yeah, just thinking about what their experience is going to be and making sure that you're executing a really great one for them is absolutely key.
Now, I could keep asking questions, but I know we want to go to live questions. So thank you, Alex and Christelle, for sharing your insights. It's inspiring to see how retailers of all sizes and very different businesses sort of can rise to the challenge of peak. And it sounds like it's about lots of planning, plan B or contingency planning, focusing on customers and strong partnerships. So hopefully everyone got something out of that, and wishing you both a very successful peak season ahead. Now, I'd like to invite Jay and Adelaide back to the stage for our live Q&A segment. And you still have time to submit your questions via Slido. So please, any questions you have for Jay, Adelaide, Alex or Christelle, get them onto Slido and we'll go to questions in a moment.
All right. Time out. Hit the parcel locker room. These make first-time delivery a breeze and increase shopper satisfaction.
quite a few questions coming through. Oh, of course, and the first question from Jake, what can we expect USA shipping to e-commerce and what are fees, including third party, going to look like? So when can we expect shipping back to the US? So great question. An hour ago, I think, roughly, we did communicate, I hope it went out just as the session started, that we will be back live on or before September 25 to the USA. It has been really challenging with the executive order from the Trump administration and then the uncertainty around how it was going to work up until literally 2 weeks ago. So we were on the case as soon as we understood what we needed to do. We've worked through getting integrated from a tech perspective into the partner we're working with, Zonos, and we will be live again and as soon as we can, but certainly by the 25th of September, which will mean that our customers can get back onto that postal service, which is not only cost effective, but for those who don't appreciate this new regime, there are higher duties for the commercial channel versus postal. So just the difference in duties alone is quite meaningful, and it'll be meaningful for you for sending to the US, but also for your customers. Okay, what are you noticing as the biggest trends in e-commerce? What products are moving the most, and are they made in Australia or overseas? Now I'm going to go to I may start with Jay. I don't know if Jay has a view on biggest trends in e-commerce and any products that you're seeing moving the most, and are they made here or overseas? And I'll certainly ask if Alex or Christelle have any view on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, we work with 4,000 brands across every niche imaginable. So I think you can make money with just about any product. Australia versus overseas manufacturing, I think some brands, it's part of their core value proposition is Australian made, and we love supporting those brands. But I do think that, particularly in a value-led environment, a lot of consumers are not as phased about where the product comes from compared to the price and the value in the marketplace. So I think there's if you asked a consumer would they prefer Australian made, they would absolutely say yes. But then when they actually get their wallet out to buy it, they often don't have that same answer. I don't think there's necessarily any massive trends with Australian made versus overseas made. And I think product-wise, it's possible to make money in any niche. We're not really seeing anything kind of crazy different than we have historically.
Christelle and Alex, I don't know if you have a view, in the tea market or in footwear.
Okay, so two types of trends I'll just touch on. One is from an operational point of view and one from a consumer point of view, but definitely operationally is this AI trend and the way we think about e-commerce. So SEO optimization was a really big thing. Now you're being able to shop in platforms like ChatGPT. So how do we ensure that we're showing up as a number one platform in that? So thinking about how we run our operations, it's not just optimizing for top page ranks, but optimizing within these agent and these platforms too. So operationally, that's been a big trend. Consumer-wise, we're getting a lot around they want it now. They want the parcel now. And I'm not just saying this because I'm here at AusPost, but it is a really clear thing that people just want it quicker and faster and sooner and same day. So we've gone to the same day delivery too, with particularly that we're in a gifting market. We're not just in a tea market. We also live in a gifting market. And they want to be able to send that to their friend this today. I forgot my mum's birthday. I forgot Father's Day. Quickly, can I get that same day delivery happening ASAP? So we're seeing that also as in addition to what was already mentioned.
And Alex, any sort of trends from you or things you're seeing from your the product made here or overseas? Does it matter? How do consumers respond?
I think that's quite industry dependent. Like Australia doesn't really have a shoe manufacturing industry, so to get a quality product, you do need to go overseas to find that. We started out manufacturing in Australia, but the quality of the product that we're able to get from overseas, the expertise, the variety, and the components, sometimes depending on your industry, you do need to source from overseas to get that.
Right. Okay. Thank you. A question for Jay: what type of activities or discounts would you recommend for adjusting price sensitivity without eating into profits? That's a hard question.
Yeah.
This is around, I guess, at peak particularly. You said earlier, massive discounts, but there are some very sort of smart ways to bundle and to position product to get to get people buying, but to get a blended margin outcome that makes sense.
Yeah, so 95% of people that we work with will do one of two different offers. I think that if you have a higher SKU count, doing a up to X% off sale as your main offer allows you to have very strong marketing message in the marketplace. So you could say up to 40% off. We're seeing a trend of people actually putting a lower threshold on that as well. So say like 20 to 50% off, because consumers are getting a little bit savvier about the actual underlying discount and they're shopping, they're shopping a bit smarter. So I think that type of discount allows you to kind of push demand to your B and C grade stock while preserving margin on sort of your A grade stock that you'd be highly likely to sell full price. And in doing so, that does allow you to preserve a little bit of margin while still having a strong competitive marketing message. So I think just delineating the effective discount from the marketing message you have in the marketplace is one strategy. And then, as I mentioned, we're big advocates of a gift with purchase or incentives that kind of align the action you want from the consumer with your outcomes. So if you have a gift with purchase threshold that's above your typical average order value, when your business as usual not on sale, that'll often mean that you don't have just a compression of your average order value during the sale period. And that really helps you preserve margin by having more fixed cost coverage and better unit economics with things like shipping and customer acquisition costs. So yeah, gift with purchase and up to X% off offer are probably two of the main tools that I like and advocate for.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, you talked about communicating with partners. How do you think about engaging seasonal staff and bringing them along with your brand's journey during the period they're supporting? So it's probably a good one for Christelle and Alex. So people, you had family and friends, Alex, but people are coming in, and we're recruiting about 3.5 seasonal casuals this year. How do you sort of get them connected to the brand, or can you in that very short period?
I think you can, and I think it's something that's worth doing and worth aiming for, because again, everyone who is within your business and who is contributing to that peak activity or at any time really, connecting them with what the purpose is that you're trying to achieve. You're trying to achieve a customer being incredibly happy with your product. They're a part in that. It's how they pack it. It's how they, check the shoes, make sure it's correct. We've got a left, we've got a right, they're the right size. All of those sort of things, it all matters. So explaining to them what the end goal is. We want a customer to open this and be delighted. What is going to make them delighted? And how they contribute to that, I think, is valuable. Everybody wants to have an impact and everybody wants to be connected to what they're doing. So the better you can take them on that journey, whether they're in your store, in your head office, in your warehouse, like wherever they are within your company, tell them what the purpose is and they will, they'll be able to feel like they're contributing. Great.
Thank you. Christelle, anything you want to add there?
Probably the only thing about just having a program that gets them through that culture very quickly, almost like a mini grad program that gets them through in terms of learning of those departments, the culture and the fun of it. In essence, though, Christmas is really fun on the retail floor. It's very easy for all of our staff, even in head office, to put their hand up and say, I want to work on the floor and help and gift wrap and so forth. So that excitement already naturally in the organisation really helps to bring everyone on board and be part of our culture.
I have a question for Adelaide. It's not on the screen, but one I have is, I don't know if any sense of, I'm often out for dinner and notice how busy it is, and we hear about people being under pressure from a cost of living, but you've painted a relatively optimistic picture. Are there particular sectors that you see will, we've seen electronics in certain sectors be stronger than others. Are there any sort of sectors you see, travel, hospitality, or other sectors growing above and beyond others?
Yeah, that's a great question. So look, there are two types of kind of drivers for spending growth. One is wage growth, so people feeling really good about the fact that they're going to keep their job, or if they lose their job, they'll be able to find another one, and then they're getting pay rises. So we're seeing that quite broadly across the economy. Of course, the eternal exception to that is youth unemployment, which is very high. And just to the previous question, I would say, it's so empowering for young people to be able to get a job. It's really hard when you're 15 to 24 to get a job. And so part of that purpose isn't always just the brand, right? It's actually, hey, we're giving you skills, we're giving you experience. And I think that's just so incredibly important to the economy and to young people. But anyway, so yeah, look, we've got that wage thing. And what that drives is little stuff. So the way I would say, it's kind of like a funnel of consumption. So at the top, you've got your car, a house, and you might have a holiday, then you might have a $5,000 bicycle, then you might have some nice clothes, and then you've got at the bottom chocolate, which is just people buy it no matter what. So when your wages go up, it's that smaller stuff that's going to be the biggest increase. And then that bigger stuff is more around when housing prices and wealth drivers are going up. Now, it's a funnel. You can split it however you want. The way I split it, and this is something that we can think about, regardless of our relationship status. If you've got to ask your partner, prob's a house price thing. If you don't have to ask your partner, prob's a wage thing. If you do have to ask your partner to buy a $50 pair of shoes, that's called financial abuse. And I do say this when I make it, look, unless money's really, really tight, I do say this seriously because I just figure 1 in 100 people might want to hear it. If you actually do have to ask your partner to buy really small things, that is a sign of financial abuse. Please look that up online. But generally speaking, those are wage growth. What we've got now is we've got both of those things going up. But on the other hand, we're coming out of a cost of living issue. So there are going to be people who maybe don't do those travel, car side of things, but because they're not doing that, it actually broadens the amount of those smaller ticket items that people are going to purchase, which is why we actually expect to see a broad lift in consumption growth across a wide range of categories.
Okay, great answer, thank you. Crystal and Alex, how important is sustainability for your customers and does it affect your conversion rates? Now, we talked the other day about this, you're both B Corps, right? So very important to the culture and sort of values of your business, but how does that actually translate that into customers and their buying patterns?
Well, yeah, it is central to everything that Baird does. We are trying to make a fully sustainable product and we're a long way from it, but you start component by component replacing with something that is more sustainable and eventually you will get there. For the customer, it's mixed. You certainly do have some customers who are very conscious of sustainability, sustainable practices, making sure a brand is doing the right thing. And then there are some customers for whom it's not on their radar yet. And trying to strike the balance between it being a cost purchase, because sustainable components are more expensive, products that are sustainable are often more expensive, that's difficult for some people. So, we're certainly trying and we will make less margin on a product to make it more sustainable if we have to. But yeah, for consumers, some are there and some are not there yet.
Right. And what do you see, Christelle?
I echo the very similar sentiments. We're also B Corp, so everything, when we say our smallest component is an ingredient in tea, it's all 100% ethically sourced. To get that happening across your supply chain is incredibly expensive. We actually, when we changed to B Corp, we had to drop about 40 different tea blends because we couldn't get them to be B Corp certified. Wow. So it is quite expensive, there's obviously a loss of profit and revenue that comes with that. It isn't easy, so we do have to do everything possible operationally to also try and optimise our costs of running our business to ensure that the consumers don't have to pay for that increasing cost in being B Corp. The other side to that I just wanted to add is around the partnerships we have too are really important. So AusPost, I'll go back again to that, it's really important that we've got the same values in terms of your sustainability strategy and the path that you've got, and ensuring that they want to see that we're also not just within our own ecosystem being sustainable or being B Corp and ethical in all these metrics, but also the partners that we bring along the journey with us too.
So last question, we are pretty much up for time, but just last question for me, maybe a quick answer from Jay, Alex and Christelle is, so we always try to balance when we announce our last posting dates. I know for pure plays, the closer we get to Christmas, the better, but it's always a balance. How important is that for retailers in terms of being able to trade right up to the last minute? And you guys have stores, but maybe I'll start with Jay, just and the reliability to be able to ship right up to a couple of days before Christmas Eve.
Yeah, it's super important. We run a whole program called Customers by Christmas. It's with late Black Fridays like last year and this year, it's really hard. So I think that's why being very dialed in with your logistics allows you to have a pretty clear run at Christmas trade through December. Otherwise, what you do see is if you do get into a backlog, that's the period of trade that you're losing. And every day kind of matters because those final days in the lead up to Christmas, the shipping cutoffs are critical. I think having really clear communication, like we often roll out a traffic light system, which is if you ship this day, it's orange, it might get there. If you ship this day, it's definitely red. Ship before this date to be green for each of the different shipping thresholds. And often people are deploying tactics like free upgrade to Express in those final days to just kind of drive that demand all the way through. But I think having a really well-oiled Black Friday strategy allows you to have a clear run at Christmas and not kind of cannibalise December for November.
The stress leading into that last spurt. Yeah.
100%.
What about for you, Alex? How important is that, those last
That's very
days?
important. Transparency for the customer and them knowing what they can expect is key for us. We try and give them as much communication as possible so that their decision making is great. They can go for shoes or they could go for a gift card if they're worried about delivery in time for Christmas. But yeah, no, we really value it because it allows us to better inform our customers what they can expect.
Okay, thanks. And Christelle, last but not least.
So last year was a really good example where I'll take you back 2 years where AusPost gives its cut-off dates to all of us that we can say on our website this is cut-off date. We always used to give a buffer on top of that because we don't entirely trust that AusPost can deliver during that peak time. That was 2 years ago. And then last year they gave the cut-off dates and we actually found that lead up to Christmas was probably one of the best Christmas you guys have. I don't know if that's true stats, but we certainly felt it on our end and it was a super reliable system. So what we ended up doing was extending our dates for the first time ever and really entrusting in AusPost to be able to deliver when it said it would deliver, no pun intended. And obviously that's a massive benefit for us as a business to be able to get those extra few days in. Not only that, but even this, I saw a question around same-day delivery. Yes, we do same-day delivery. Yes, it is with AusPost. We're trialling it in the Melbourne metro area. Yes, it is successful. And those extra little bits is every cent really matters.
Okay, well, thank you. And look, thank you to everyone who joined us today, whether you are here in the studio or tuning in from across the country. It was great to hear from a number of industry leaders, retail experts, and our own customers about what it takes to succeed during peak. And the message is really clear. We heard preparation, plan B, agility, and customer focus. They're all key. At Australia Post, we're proud to stand beside you during this critical season. We know we're a big part of the solution. And we have, of course, our new small satchel, extra small satchel. We've got more lockers rolling out, the Shopify partnership we've announced, and the 15 new facilities that add over 200,000 parcels a day that we can process. So we're investing in the tools and infrastructure to help you deliver more, faster, and with more confidence. Peak really is a team effort, and together we're ready to rise to the challenge with you. Now, if you'd like to explore any of the tools or services mentioned today, they'll be in the webinar console. And of course, our teams are here in the room and out there online, or they can come and see you to help you support you on every step of the way. So thanks again for being part of the Peak Performance 2025. And let's make this our best peak season yet. Thanks, everyone.